The 2023 NFL Draft is quickly approaching, and during draft season, there's always mock drafts, rankings, big boards, and of course, the subject of today's video, positional rankings. This running back class is one of the best we've seen over the past few years, as there is talent everywhere. This running back class has one of the best prospects we've seen over the past decade, and he should make not just an impact, but be a very good player right from the start. However, Bijan Robinson is not the only running back in this class, and if you're a fan of a team that needs a running back in the worst way, this class has a back for you as they come in all shapes and sizes. And there is a lot to break down for each individual back in today's video, and without further ado, let's begin. And we are starting today's video with Deuce Vaughn from Kansas State. Deuce is the epitome of running backs, especially in this class, coming in all shapes and sizes. He measured in at the NFL Combine at just 5'5", 179 pounds, but is a back that can not only play, but play at a high level. During his time at Kansas State, he ran for over 2,700 yards and had 28 rushing touchdowns. He wasn't just a running back either, as he hauled in 89 receptions during his 3 seasons at K-State for nearly another 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns. Because of his size, he will inevitably be pushed down a lot of teams' boards, but I do think this is a player that can succeed at the NFL level. His size will be brought up routinely throughout the draft process, but I think this benefits him because when you're in the muck of things at or near the line of scrimmage, a lot of opposing defenders, especially linemen, have a hard time not only finding him, but bringing him to the ground. He also has an extremely small strike zone as to where defenders can hit him. Does Deuce have game-breaking speed? No, absolutely not, but I think this is a classic case of focusing on what a guy cannot do physically because of his size, rather than focusing on what he can do. As cliche as this sounds, he snatches people's ankles and it shows up time and time again on tape. And because of his size, he only needs a small hole to get through, and when he clears, he's not necessarily gone like Devonta Chains may be, but he's picking up several yards at a time. This is a player that ran for over 1,500 yards during his final season at Kansas State, and in his final 2 games, ran for over 130 yards against TCU in what was the Big 12 Conference Championship, and ran for an additional 131 yards against Alabama in the Sugar Bowl, which included an 88-yard touchdown to put Kansas State up 10-0. Not surprisingly, Alabama eventually won the game, but within the Sugar Bowl, Deuce forced 5 missed tackles after forcing 7 missed tackles against TCU in the conference championship. Is Deuce going to be an every down back at the NFL level? No, but he is a player that brings too much to the table to just dismiss and say, oh, he's not going to be good because of his size. Would you want Deuce at 175, or even if he bulks up to 183 or 185 at the NFL level, taking on a 225-pound player blitzing off the edge, running at him unblocked at full speed? No, but that doesn't make him a bad player because of a 40-pound disadvantage that he should, in theory, lose every time. Yes, it's a negative, but to dismiss him as a prospect entirely for that when he brings too much to the table is ridiculous, and he comes in today's video at number 5. Devonta Chains from Texas A&M is up, and contrary to what you may hear about Chains, he is not just a home run threat. Yes, he has the track speed and it shows up on tape, but he is a solid back and one you have to account for on every single play. Because if you don't, well, Chains ran a 10.22 100-meter dash at the 2021 NCAA Track and Field Championships. I don't think Chains is going to come in from day one and be a perennial 1,000-yard back or be a player you plug and play from day one like teams have in the past. There is a lot to like, but especially early on, I think teams should look to ease Chains into the offense and scheme him plays, whether it's a jet sweep or pitch play to the far side of the field, things of this nature. Chains does a lot of things right, but at 185 pounds, you can probably guess he's not going to look like Nick Chubb between the tackles and wear teams down throughout the later part of games. And by the way, that's not to say he doesn't run between the tackles or that he's afraid of running between the tackles, because he does, and quite often. It's just 185 pounds of A-Chain coming at a defense is a lot different than 225 pounds of Nick Chubb. And like with Deuce Vaughn, because A-Chain is smaller, it comes up a lot in pass protection. But the same point with Vaughn applies to Devon too, and that's that pass pro should not be a reason A-Chain falls multiple rounds down the board, because there is far too much to like with him. 705 of A-Chain's 1,100 yards came after contact in 2022. And another big thing to note in A-Chain's favor is how much, or in his case, how little he puts the ball on the turf. He finished his time at A&M with 369 carries and fumbled just twice. NFL teams would take this ratio in a heartbeat, as fumbling just twice over the course of a season from your starting running back is a recipe, or at least an ingredient, for winning games. A-Chain is a good back with downright insane speed, but the big thing to remember with him is he's not just a home run threat. No matter the team, he has a role from day one. Whether that's returning kicks or offensive coordinators getting him the ball in open field via screens, sweeps, or touch passes, A-Chain will be a playmaker from day one. Will he be a 1,000-yard back in 2023? I don't think so, but I think he can carve out a role to where opposing defenses have to account for him in every single play. Because if they don't, you'll be reading the back of his jersey on the way for 6. Next up is Zach Charbonnet from UCLA. Zach is a 4-year college football player, and the reason we say college football player is he was with the Michigan Wolverines in 2019 and 20. As cliche as this is going to sound, watching a Big Ten running back play in the Pac-12 over the past 2 years has not only been a joy to watch, but sometimes it is hilarious watching the Pac-12 players try and tackle Charbonnet. In 2021, he forced 69 missed tackles, nice, and 53 during his final year in 2022. He had back-to-back 1,000-yard years for the Bruins and back-to-back 10-plus rushing touchdown seasons. He is my favorite running back in the class, which is not the same as the best, and I do want that part to be clear. He is a bigger back, but he's not just a run downhill, run over DBs 20 pounds lighter than him player like you often see with bigger backs. He has that in his game, but that's not the only way he succeeds. One area he did need to work on in 2022 was catching the football, or at least becoming a more viable receiving option, and he did that as he finished the year with 37 receptions. He's never going to be an elite receiving threat out of the backfield or another receiver, as some backs are referred to as, but he has enough in his arsenal to have the defense at least know he's there, meaning they can't leave him open and unguarded because he can do damage if the opportunity is there, which in turn helps the other players on the offense. I think his rookie year will look very similar to Tyler Algier of the Atlanta Falcons, who was drafted in the 5th round of the 2022 NFL Draft, who quietly ran for over 1,000 yards as a rookie and should be a good back for them next year. Zach played in just 10 games during his final year at UCLA and ran for over 100 yards in 8 of those games. The only 2 he did not was against South Alabama, as he had 77 yards on 12 carries, and against USC in a game he had 95 yards on 19 carries. He had 3 games with 180 plus yards in 2022 and had a combined 7 touchdowns in those 3 games. Meaning UCLA pretty much said, we're going to keep feeding you Charbonnet, and if you can't stop him, good luck. I think this kid is a day 1 starter and will be for at minimum the next 4 years. He is 22 years old and does not have a lot of wear and tear on his body like you often see with successful collegiate running backs. He is a very safe prospect, and there's times where with safe prospects, you often hear that their ceiling isn't that high, but with Zach, I don't see any reason he can't come in and be a multiple-time 1,000-yard rusher. The only flaws in his game, to me at least, is nitpicking things he's not necessarily great at. You'll never confuse his speed with the aforementioned Devon A-Chain, but if Zach is picking up 4.5 or 5 yards per carry every play, does it really matter? I don't think so, and I think he is one of the safest prospects in the 2023 NFL Draft. From Los Angeles to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, we go to discuss Jamir Gibbs. Jamir is a very talented back, and it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if he's drafted in the 1st round in late April. He has high-end speed, he is extremely agile and makes defenders miss routinely in the open field, and is also a very good receiving back on top of it. Because of his wiggle and the ability he has to make tacklers miss, he has been routinely compared to Alvin Kamara. I don't fully agree with the Kamara comparison, as Alvin is around 215 pounds to Gibbs 199, and those 16 pounds make quite a difference. I think he's more of a blend of Alvin Kamara and the Cook brothers in Dalvin and James, but I don't think it's a one-to-one comparison of him and Alvin. He will come in and contribute early and often, and he should be a 1,000 total yard player right from the start. He is a unique weapon, and the tape shows how good he is, and for lack of a better word, just how fluid of an athlete he is. Jamir has light feet, he's a natural with the football in his hands, and he presents a lot of problems in the receiving game. There's really not a lot to dislike about his game. He was a transfer from Georgia Tech and had 4 fumbles on just 232 carries in 2020 and 2021 combined, and he answered that by going from the ACC to the SEC and having 0 fumbles in 2022. Of the 926 rushing yards he had in 2022, 512 came after contact. Given his size at 199 pounds, there will be questions about durability, but he had a 3-game span during the 2022 season against Arkansas, Texas A&M, and Tennessee, in which he had 3 straight games with 18-plus carries and had over 100 yards in all of them. Positional value will naturally push him down the board, but he is a first-round talent and to me is the second best running back in this class. Jamir Gibbs is dangerous with the football in his hands. I'm sure you've heard all about Bijan Robinson by now, but the hype is worth it. I'm debating on doing a full breakdown on Bijan like we did with Will Levis, as he is an insane prospect. During his junior season at Texas, he forced 104 missed tackles, which was the most in the country. He ran for over 1,500 yards and ran for 18 touchdowns too. I struggle to find any knocks on Bijan's game, as he is that talented of a player. The consensus among scouts is that sometimes he will look to make a 3-yard play, a 30-yard play, when he could get an additional yard or 2, but that's about it. And the only other thing to say about him, which isn't even a negative, is saying he has good speed and not great or generational speed like a Devonta Chains. His speed is equivalent to getting a 90 on a test and being happy about the said 90%, and basically saying great, but you could have gotten a 100. He's an uber-talented football player, and you often hear the phrase 3-down back, which Bijan is. He can play in any system and succeed. He rips through arm tackles, he has a low center of gravity, and his head is always up looking for the next hole to go through. This is, without a doubt, one of the best football players in the 2023 draft class, and if he stays healthy in his rookie season, I would be very surprised if he is not a Pro Bowler next year. My dream scenario for him is to wind up on the Eagles, as him running behind that line, along with the rushing ability of quarterback Jalen Hurts, would present unprecedented problems for opposing defenses. But regardless of where Bijan goes, they are getting the best running back in the draft. He's fast, strong, powerful, bounces off tacklers, and also catches the football well. I struggle to find a weakness in his game, and he will make a big difference from day one. And that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like the video, as it would help tremendously with the YouTube algorithm, as well as subscribe to the channel, as it would mean the world. And until next time, as always, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.